Once again, my name is Otis Noble III. I am the Assistant Director of Community Engagement with the Division of Social Sciences at UCLA. And I have the pleasure today to speak with Dr. Shauna Redmond, Dr. Robeson Taj Frazier, and Dr. Sophia Noble. How are all of you doing today?
Good.
Fine, thank you.
All right. Before we go into the conversation, I just kind of want to do a check-in with you all to see if there's an album or a book that's helped, you get through this pandemic. So let's start with Dr. Redmond first.
Music, obviously, for me for everyone, is always something that assists in managing or making sense of the world. A song that early on came into rotation for me was Donny Hathaway's Lord Help Me, which is just a super brilliant, soulful, as you would expect from Hathaway piece, but one that I thought, even to my secular mind, was a beautiful kind of meditation on what was happening in the current times. Shuggie Otis's Inspiration Information also is an album that I've been listening to a lot recently. So both of those things have been really kind of clutch in this moment.
All right. How about you, Dr. Frazier?
Let's see. I've been listening to John Coltrane, so a number of John Coltrane records, Love Supreme, Giant Steps. They've just helped me to feel in a state of balance and focus on recalibrating. It's been beneficial too, I think, for my family and just giving us a kind of meditative kind of vibration of being in the moment. So listening to that. One of the films I've also been just watching a lot is a film by Ben Caldwell, one of his student films called Medea, which is really a kind of a cinematic kind of work that focuses on the information that we're born with, the kind of information that is passed on to us by family members, information that relates to historical trauma, but also that provides us with the kind of tools and resources to be resilient. So that film, it's a short work, but it's helped me and remind me of the kinds of resources that I have to tap into that, I wasn't taught in a classroom or haven't got through a book, but I got from family members, from loved ones, from community.
Mm-hmm. So Medea, you're gonna have to send that one over to me. I haven't heard it.
I'll send you, and it's a UCLA. It's a work that actually is housed at UCLA and right. UCLA's archives, and it's also available online.
Thank you for letting us know that, because Dr. Frazier's over at USC, so thanks for shouting out UCLA on that one. And also, Dr. Noble, is there a album or a book that's helped you get through this?
Well, I have an 8-year-old. We have an 8-year-old, so everything rolling over here is kind of in the kid zone. But gosh, I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I'm still struggling. I've been listening to a lot of HER. I'm listening to Bill Withers, obviously, rest in power. My girlfriend broke me down the day he died, and she posted on social media, he's in grandma's hands now. And that took me all the way down to the ground, wrecked me out. So I've had him on steady rotation, just trying to bring in some of the classics from my childhood, Marvin Gaye, definitely Bill. We've also been playing some Uno death matches at dinner time at our house just to kind of keep it connected. And so Jill Scott's been on in the background. She always gets me through. I feel like she just puts us in the right family heart and space of love.
She's good for a card game.
She's good for a card game. She's good for flipping a table when everybody's acting up on the card table. And also, she's making me feel like I'm looking forward to the summer barbecues or the fall barbecues or whenever we're going to get together, So she's putting me in a party planning mood.
Definitely. And Megan Thee Stallion's remix with Beyonce also helped get through a nice card game as well. So thank you all for, spending a little time with me today as the community engagement, assistant director. One of the things I have been thinking about during this pandemic is how community and culture have really kind of helped folks get through this. So the prompt I have for you all is tell me about the role that culture plays in taking care of community during this pandemic.
I mean, culture, to paraphrase a quote that's often touted, is a way of life, right? It's how people move through the world. And so culture is something that's always present, always with us, but definitely something that we more deeply tap into in moments of crisis or uncertainty or precarity. And that's something that Black folks in particular know very, very well. And so I think culture, in thinking about visual art, the moving arts, certainly music, has been something that I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of my family, and certainly I've tried to encourage people who are feeling distant or discouraged to tap into, because it becomes this beautiful reservoir, and one that's open to radical interpretation, right? You're not always going to understand how that song came to that individual, for example, but it will resonate with you in ways that may be very, very personal or may be widely shared. It may become anthemic for people in ways that will draw you closer to the people who you can't physically reach. And so culture in this moment, I think, whether it be on a very micro scale or the macro scale, somebody like who I know we're going to talk about today, D Nice, right? Coming out into the world, reaching 30,000 people or more at a time with his sets. Those types of opportunities actually make the distance feel less painful, right? When you think that you're moving or listening alongside other folks you care about. I know that, some really good friends of mine, we have a WhatsApp chat that will chat through the entire set. Be like, oh snap, he just played that. Or especially with this series that Swizz Beatz and Timbaland put out, the Verses series. We've been tweeting through those whole sets, right? To think about not only how we're experiencing it in this moment, but also where it's taking us back to. Oh, do you remember when that song came out? Do you remember the high school jams or whatever the situation may have been, as a way of not just finding a release or an escape, even when those things are important, but actually really meaningfully contending with the present, really feeling grounded where I am right now instead of trying to fly away. So both of those opportunities, I think, do a tremendous amount of work for helping people to cope and to feel alive in a moment where we're faced with so much death.
Yeah, I love that, because one of the things that I study is obviously the internet and the role of the internet and digital technologies in our communities, the way that we get oppositionally kind of positioned with respect to big tech companies. But at the same time, it's complex, because certainly TikTok has seen a huge boom, I think, in the distribution of Black culture specifically right now in this moment, with every type of challenge, dance challenge, for example, that's going on, and otherwise. And this makes me think about again how everyday people try to find a way to find visibility at a time when we're kind of sheltering in place and feeling not visible, or people that we love are not particularly visible to us. So I have this really difficult relationship right now with watching big tech companies in particular really profit off of the capture of our culture, or the kind of the capture of our attention while we're sheltering in place. And at the same time, it is, the sharing and the shared culture that happens through distributed networks is really powerful and important. So I think it's kind of like it's these contradictions can exist simultaneously. And I'm definitely been thinking and trying to write about the complexity of that right now.
Yeah, I think that's, when you're thinking about that prompt in terms of culture, how culture offers us a way of thinking about both visibility and connection. But as Dr. Noble brings up, the uneven power dynamics that are operating simultaneous to all of this as it's happening and in the aftermath. So yeah, it's the beauty of being able to share in that experience of listening to D Nice, or listening to the beat battle between RZA and DJ Premier. And as Dr. Redmond says, tapping into that nostalgia, tapping into, where we were in a particular moment in time and what we were experiencing, and that offering us a way of both making sense of the present, where the past becomes a resource in our ability to navigate and negotiate the present, but as well, the reality that big tech is, good. They've seen a boom over the last 6 weeks in terms of our digital footprints and acquiring more data about us. Even with the Versus, which has been phenomenal to watch. Timbaland and Swiss Beats have trademarked that, so they're already thinking about how to monetize it for the future. And I'm sure other platforms like Instagram Live, they weren't even probably thinking about their platform in that kind of way, or maybe they were, but now they have insight and data to repurpose the platform in a way that, utilizes it in similar kinds of ways that we've seen it being used as a platform over the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm particularly intrigued in terms of, the political economy of what Black folks are doing, online, and hopefully us using this as an opportunity to become more critically engaged, and aware, and demanding, number one, more, and demanding a different kind of infrastructure, one that doesn't just kind of capitalize off of our use,
Yeah, I want to say about that Black culture is always the catalyst for these big platforms to grow. We wouldn't have had Vine if it weren't for Black teenage girls, quite frankly, and the content that they produced and used there. We would not have known about Facebook Live had it not been for the murder of Philandro Castile, quite frankly, captured. Instagram Live, there is no doubt that the role that the Club Quarantine and D-Nice have played in again, making this a mainstream mass kind of platform. I know people who were not on Instagram and they got on Instagram because of D-Nice, right? Otis being one of them. So all of these, and TikTok, of course, so all of these platforms, when I think about popular culture, Black culture is always at the epicenter of popular culture. And, and it's particularly profound to me right now that at a moment of like the pandemic and massive death and pain and suffering, that Black culture also is like the liberatory proxy of soulfulness, of perseverance, of making it through. These are also really important dimensions to me of the pandemic right now.
Yeah, and it's hard to hold those things in tension, right? Because sometimes you don't want to think about being monetized. You don't want to think about the incredible state of capture. Like, we are the epitome of a captive audience right now, right? So it is a ripe opportunity for all of these platforms, these companies, to develop new and newer software or innovate in ways that actually potentially become really detrimental to how we understand the culture being produced at this moment. Sometimes I just want to hold the fact that Black culture is undefeated. Black popular culture is undefeated, and it has been revealed to me many, many, many times. But during the quarantine, there have been, a number of opportunities for me to understand that, partially through these DJs, right? So someone like Ninth Wonder, who's doing sets based around TV theme songs, who did a whole set on like the 80s the other week. And I got my whole life listening to all of this synth electric, music that was in the way, way back of my mind, but somehow I knew every word. That's how I know we're undefeated, because we listen to everything. Yeah. We listen to everything, and they're putting it on beautiful display. But again, it is a recognition of the fact that, You know, D Nice is now doing all of this stuff with MTV. I saw he was in Vogue. He might be having a new line of fedoras that come out of this. You know, that there are all of these ways that we actually have to be mindful of how the culture continues to be exploited in ways that will not benefit the Black community.
Yeah.
That will certainly and have already fattened D Nice's pocketbook, but that's not, we don't believe in that trickle down evidence, right? So how do we actually think about this production in a way that is not based on the metrics of the marketplace? How do we understand the impact and significance without actually counting dollars and cents? Are there ways that we can differently communalize these relationships, these performances in ways that have sustainability, have longevity, without actually becoming kind of further grist for the capitalist mill?
Right. I mean, when you think about, so D Nice, fantastic. I mean, there's a whole generation of people who are aware of D Nice who are not aware of D Nice, right? And like you said, D Nice has been able to, one of my buddies said, D Nice is going to be getting more work, you know, now potentially than he was getting over the last 5 years. But what does this mean when we think about the crises and the pandemic on, you know, the local DJs who were relying upon doing their sets on Wednesdays and Thursdays at the local space, who are not able to, you know, have an active audience of several thousands online? I mean, I keep thinking about the quote unquote everyday cultural workers whose livelihood has been devastated by this current situation, as well as the, you know, the cultural institutions, those cultural institutions that don't have the kind of resources as the Whitney or the MoMA, who need bodies coming inside of the space, you know, who need donations, who were already in very precarious circumstances, but, you know, I played a significant role in not simply just sharing the stories of our communities, but cultivating spaces for intergenerational fellowship, for awareness of both communal histories, but also activation of a kind of creative sensibility in different generations. I'm just very, very concerned about the ways that the crisis is being depicted as this opportunity for people to become more digitally savvy and digitally literate, having, you know, online film festivals and art festivals that take away from the need for physical spaces for sharing and fellowship and connectivity, and that take away from us thinking about the unevenness of who gets access, who's able to leverage this crisis, and, you know, who's able to leverage Black popular culture, Black expressive culture, and who's not able to leverage it on the same kind of stage, you know, which I think is an important conversation for us to be having. And I think, you know, people are having these kinds of conversations, but to me, it's essential that that's also given a more, you know, a higher platform. So it's important for us to be able to, you know, both celebrate collectively and but also I think to hear from the voices, and for people who have those kind of platforms, hopefully to extend their platforms for those voices to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I keep thinking about the anticipation of being together again. Like that is part of the tension that's happening. Like, yeah, okay, you know, I'm enjoying the club quarantine, but what I really can't wait for is when we really get together and party, you know? So there is something about how we are not fully captured, or how this kind of dialectic relationship to kind of the mass distribution of Black popular culture right now, that actually creates, at least for me, I can say, a longing for the local, a longing for the physical, a longing for when is Black LA going to get back to business? You know what I mean? When are we going to gather? And, you know, in that way, I feel you're, you know, what you're saying, because I feel like that is important. And I'm craving, you know, getting back to that kind of local connection.
Well, Dr. Noble, Dr. Frazier, Dr. Redmond, thank you for your time. How can we get in touch with you, if that's okay?
Well, speaking of these platforms, I am present on Twitter at Shauna Redmond, IG Shauna L. Redmond, my email shauna.redmond@schoolofmusic.ucla.edu.
I'm also online on Instagram at Black Infinite. So it's BLAKINFINITE. As well as I can be reached via email, rfrazier@usc.edu. And I work with an institution called the Institute for Diversity and Empowerment at Annenberg. So I can be reached at those different sites.
Yeah, I'm definitely part of the Black Twitterati, and I'm at Safia Noble on Twitter. I'm on Instagram at Safia Noble PhD, and I can be reached at UCLA through the UCLA Center for Critical Internet Inquiry.
So thank you all for allowing me a little bit of your time today. Please take care of yourselves and your families and be safe out here.
Thank you too. Thanks so much.
All right, y'all.